I just want to thank you again for coming down. I have two simple questions. The first one is, how much potency did the Israeli lobby have in attacking Lebanon in 2006 and Barak's renewed threats against the Hezbollah? And the second question is very simple. What other lobbies and think tanks in Canada and also in parts of Europe have the same potency as AIPAC?
With regard to the Lebanon war, I don't believe, based on the available evidence, that the lobby had much to do with Israel's decision to attack Lebanon in the summer of 2006. As best we can tell from the public record, Ariel Sharon was beginning to think about using military force to either greatly weaken or eliminate the rocket and missile threat from Hezbollah in the fall of 2005. And then he had a stroke in early 2006 and was incapacitated, and Ehud Olmert became the prime minister. It's very clear from the Winograd Commission that Olmert almost immediately began thinking about using military force in a large-scale way against Lebanon, and specifically against Hezbollah. And that the Israelis were then going to look for a pretext to use military force. So it's quite clear the Israelis were planning that from early 2006 up until I think it was July 12th when those Israeli soldiers were either captured or killed. Now the question you're asking is, how much influence did the neoconservatives or the lobby more generally have in causing the Israelis to think this way? Based on conversations with people about this matter, it seems that there were a number of people in the Bush administration, Elliot Abrams, David Wormser, both of whom I think clearly fit in the category of the lobby, who were encouraging the Israelis to do this. So I think there are certainly elements in the administration and probably outside the administration who told the Israelis this was a good idea. But it appears, based on what evidence is out there, that the Israelis concocted this idea all by themselves. With regard to what sort of pressure is being brought to bear on Israel today to take another shot at Hezbollah, I would imagine that there are elements in the lobby and elements inside Israel that are pushing the Israelis to use military force against Hezbollah. It's hard to tell exactly what's going on because there's just not that much evidence in the record. But I would say to you that I don't think the Israelis are foolish enough to pick another fight with Hezbollah, because the problem is that the Israelis have no strategy. There's no viable strategy that the Israelis have for beating Hezbollah. This is what frustrates them so greatly, and they'll tell you this in private. You know, one of the reasons that it was so clear to me and all my friends who do military strategy in the United States that the Israelis would fail in 2006 is the fact that the Israelis fought a war against Hezbollah between 1982 and 2000. That was an 18-year war, which Hezbollah won, because the Israelis left in early 2000 with their tails between their legs. So in the summer of 2006, when the air war failed, the Israeli air war failed, and they began to talk about sending ground forces into southern Lebanon, and the Israeli leaders were saying, just give us a couple more weeks to finish the job. I was scratching my head and saying, what are these people talking about? They couldn't finish the job in 18 years. How could they possibly finish in a couple weeks? Just to unpack this a bit more, you can't beat Hezbollah from the air, right? It's basically a bunch of guerrillas running around on the ground with small rockets and missiles. And it's very hard to hit those kind of individuals with air power. It just doesn't work very well. And sending in ground forces, as we just talked about, doesn't make sense. So I think I'd be very, very surprised if the Israelis went back into southern Lebanon. And I think if they did go back into southern Lebanon, they'd get their snouts whacked again.